two companies together. The first company was a moderately successful but largely forgotten digital media company in the 90s. And then the second one is Tesla Motors, which has succeeded beyond what we would have ever expected. In both cases, we used a similar process to do this. And they're very different companies, yet the result was the same, how we got there was the same. So we started with, why would you start something? And it's really because there are things worth changing. And they can be really important things, social things, environmental things, or they can be things that are not that important, like books. And I'll explain that in a second. So you find a problem, though, that you care about. And several of the other speakers have touched on this. It has to be something, you're going to spend so much time working on this problem. You had better really care about it. And that is the most important thing, is to follow that passion. So we looked around, and there are lots of problems. That's the neat thing about the world, is there are lots and lots of problems to go out and solve. You're never kind of short of those. And in the 90s, we were befuddled by books. Both Martin and I loved to read. We were traveling a lot, especially I was traveling a lot, and we had tons and tons of books. And this was a problem. You can imagine getting on an airplane, with this giant bag of books, because you're going to be flying and traveling for weeks and weeks on end. So in the 90s, we picked books. We were going to solve that problem. And in 2000, and you got to meet cool authors. I will say that was part of it, because we thought, well, we like books. We could meet really neat people, authors. It would be really fun. And in 2003, we really upped the game, and we went after a project that was more important, and that was oil. And really, when you talk about oil, you're really talking about cars. So we attacked the car. The first thing you do when you take one of these journeys of building, something new, is you study the existing landscape really, really well. And you read about it, and we talk to people. One of the neat things about adults is they generally love to talk about themselves, and the stuff that they do, and the stuff that they have passion about. So you can find out a lot about an industry simply by calling up people and saying, hey, I saw your name on this article, and I'd really like to find out more about how this works. And people are incredibly generous with their time and tell you all kinds of neat things about how the world really works and how these transactions really happen. And it's not just for products. It's service organizations. I've talked to other people that have founded community groups and stuff. And again, it's they interview and they talk to people and they understand the landscape that they're going after really well to begin with. The book industry, it was an interesting thing. It was started in the 1600s. And largely there was all these publishers that were publishing books, taking people's thoughts and making them in paper and then distributing them. And over the course of 400 years, they had ended up in a handful of publishers. But they had gotten incredibly good at that. So one of our initial thoughts was this new this idea of taking technology and applying it to books. Remember, this was in the Stone Ages, so a lot of us think, oh my gosh, it's an iPad. But at the time, those things didn't exist. They couldn't exist yet. So, they looked at that, and we thought, well, this is going to be an easy sell, because books, all that paper, those trees, you got to print them, you got to distribute them. This is going to make that frictionless. But it turns out that after 400 years, they've gotten so good at that, it hardly costs anything. The hardback book that you hold in your hand was made for almost nothing and distributed all over the planet for almost nothing. So that totally changed our vision of how we were going to break into that industry. The car industry was in a similar but sort of different world. It was only a couple hundred years old, really, or 100 years old in any meaningful way. There were only a few major brands. They were huge. The car industry is gigantic, like $1 trillion or something around the world. And they also had become incredibly efficient by that point. Again, we thought naively, oh, this will be great because we have this idea of making perhaps an electric car. That internal combustion engine, it's got 400 moving parts. That's got to be pretty expensive. We can fix that. It turns out that they make those engines so efficiently. They'll run for 100,000 miles, and it costs them almost nothing to make those engines. So it wasn't going to ever be a cost thing for what we were doing. We then decided that we would study the customer. And this is really important because the customer is ultimately what you're making the product for. So we wanted to find out who was buying these products and why were they buying them. And as one of the other speakers mentioned, but you can't ask the customer what they want because they don't really know. So this woman here, I doubt if you had ever asked her, she said, I want like a 4-foot-long white thing with mushrooms growing out of it. She's delighted. Look at, she's totally delighted at that. But she would never have had that delight. What she probably might have said is, I want to eat more locally grown food, and I'm kind of into mushrooms. But she's at a mushroom farm, picking her giant thing of mushrooms. But she wouldn't have come up with that. You as the creator, the inventor, had to think about some solution that the customer is not aware of. We also look for disruption. And this is things that the big industries, especially I think these big industries, because they're so old, they're so used to things going on and on and on, just the way they've been doing it. Publishing really hadn't changed in 400 years. The printing presses had gotten better, the underlying technology of the printing press had changed, but fundamentally, they were still grinding up trees and having authors write things down and printing them. And things were changing underneath them, and they didn't see it. If there was an advancement in ink, they were all over it. But something like the internet was not something that they were looking at. So in the book industry at the time, things were happening in so many different directions that they were just doomed. I mean, you could just tell. I mean, this is an example of just a few of the things. Content was going digital, even the presses were becoming digital. Storage, one of the objections only a few years before was, we can't really store a book on anything, to have hundreds and hundreds of K of text stored in your hand would be impossibly expensive, or even on disk drives, they would be impossibly expensive. But all those prices were falling like crazy. The displays were getting better. We had people tell us, people who should have known better, venture capitalists that should have known better, that said, well, this will never work because no one will ever read anything on a screen. And this was in '96. The world was just about to completely change because the display technology was getting so much better. And we knew that. We went to Japan and we went to the suppliers and we could see it happening. In the car industry, it was a different kind of disruption that was happening. The customer was changing. So this was fascinating because the car industry makes cars for a whole variety of different customer bases. But what was happening with customers is they were caring about the fuel that they were using. It isn't that they wanted to save fuel to save money. They wanted to actually not use oil. They didn't like the way it played into the politics. They didn't like the way it hurt the environment, whether in terms of smog or in CO2. And in 2003, climate change and CO2 was not as clear-cut as it is now. At the same time, we knew that batteries were getting better. Every day they were getting better. We saw that it was going to enable us to build our handheld readers, which were kind of like really iPads. And I'll show you a picture of that in a second. So we knew those things were happening. There were manufacturing changes that were happening that are kind of more esoteric. But the big car companies, they didn't know what to make of any of this. They weren't paying attention to batteries. They didn't believe in computers. They had outsourced that long ago. The manufacturing partners they've had for years and years and years. And the customers were just freaking them out. They were turning in their Lexuses and their Mercedes and they were buying Priuses. The very people that could afford anything and certainly didn't care about gas prices were changing their cars and they didn't understand it. So in the 90s, our solution to the giant stack of books and seeing the disruption was to create electric books. So this was our first production run. We actually sold a lot of these. They were very popular, relatively. We sold thousands of them. And content was delivered by major publishers after an enormously long stint of trying to get the publishers to agree. And it was, as I said, moderately successful. And perhaps because we're not that creative, our solution was electric cars the second time for oil. And I think most people are aware, this is the Roadster, our first product, and of course the Model S, the sedan, which is everywhere right now. But one thing, when you come up with this great game-changing thing, whatever it is that it has to be better than what was before. And this is really important. I see a lot of different companies, a lot of startups, people come and ask questions, and they say, we have this product and it's cleaner or whatever, but it's a lamer product. It actually, changing people's behavior is very, very hard. You don't think about it, but if you're asking people to, instead of going to the bookstore and buy a book, buy it on Amazon, that was quite a stretch, and then instead of having it delivered, just have it delivered right into your hand. That's a change. If you don't want to go to the gas station and you want them to just plug in the car, those are behavior changes, and they're remarkably difficult to happen. So it has to be a better product, a better service. So for the books, it had lots of cool things. You could buy a book and have it immediately delivered to your hand, which was really neat. I mean, nobody had done that before. The books had no weight or volume, additional books. So this played into niches we never imagined. We had a very loyal following among nuclear submariners. Those are the Navy officers that pilot the submarines that stay underwater for months on end. And it turns out they have a nuclear reactor. They got tons of power, but they don't have any space. So they were allowed one paperback book for 3 months. And they would all share those books. But people's tastes, are very different. So this allowed them to bring this one paperback book size, but download 30 or 40 books that they could read over the course of those months underwater. A niche that we just never imagined, that was not in our marketing plan at all, but very popular. And there were things that, the notes didn't get lost and you could read in bed. We got lots of letters from customers saying, I've been married for 25 years and haven't been able to read in bed until your device came out. And you could read in big fonts, which, you guys are young and don't realize this, but at some point that'll be important. It's a better reading experience. So we were able to get customers to change their behavior because it was actually a better experience. It wasn't a lamer experience. So for the roadster, we made sure, some of you have seen my kind of endless talk on energy efficiency. We looked at every possible measure of energy use and resource use, whether it was land or biofuels or hydrogen fuel cells or whatever. We wanted to make absolutely sure that a battery electric car is more efficient, that it uses less resources, less electricity, it creates less CO2. And in fact, obviously, if you use renewable power, it doesn't create any CO2. We needed to make really, really sure it was better than any other car. And then the other thing is that electric cars, if you design them to do this, they can provide a level of acceleration, of fun, that no gasoline-powered car can touch. So again, we wanted to make sure it was a better driving experience. To say, well, we hate, we really want to save the planet, so you have to do you have to be this terrible thing that you hate all the time. That's not going to work. As you think about solutions to problems, they have to make things better and more fun. The next big thing to remember is you have to be able to convince other people. These are big projects. They take lots and lots of people to pull off. As I said, many people come to me and ask questions about companies and they want to start something. And these are big projects. They take lots of people. If you can't convince people, it's not good enough. Fail fast and often. It's a mantra. You can't do that. You can't start out making electric cars, hundreds of millions of dollars, and then end up with lawnmowers. It doesn't work that way. But every design decision is an iteration. It's a modeling thing. You fail all the time in modeling. So what's next? There are enormous challenges ahead. All kinds of fun things to work on in the future. Everything must change. And I say this not because, change is constant. It's that everything really will change. Because nothing is sustainable right now. Everything has to be rebuilt. And there's a great quote from an economist. It says, if something cannot go on forever, it will stop. And it sounds self-evident, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels like things will go on this way forever. But it really can't go on this way forever. These really will stop. So now, we're not going to build a utopia. We're going to build a place that has lots of cool things and toys and stuff to play with, but they're going to be sustainably based so that we can go on as a society forever. We don't want to end up like Rome. It was a great couple hundred years, but then it ended badly. So this is the starting of Tesla Motors. We built a business plan. We got money. That's Elon Musk. He was one of our first investors. He's now the CEO. We figured out how to make it, what it was going to look like. We hired some employees. We got to get the group all believing. We moved into an office building. We built a mule, like a test platform, so we can fail lots and often. Those are the original design sketches of the circuitry that went inside. We had our test platform. We drove it around. We had a beauty contest at the Christmas party, and we picked the winner right there. And that's what the car ended up looking like, pretty much. We went to play and had the artists do it in clay. We packaged it. It's quite a trick to get it to all squish in. We got the full-scale clay model. That's the actual clay model wrapped in aluminum so you can see it. We did tons of aerodynamic stuff to tweak it in to make it exactly right. We made motors and electronics and all that kind of good stuff. We built another mule so customers could see what it was going to look like, so we could fail fast and often there if people hated it. We built 10 engineering prototypes which were exactly what we thought that we were going to produce. And then we tested them like crazy. Oh, we showed them, right? It came out in public. Then we tested them like crazy. We found all kinds of failures and problems and issues with them on cobblestone racetracks and saltwater, trips and frozen lakes in Sweden. We built 10 more prototypes a year later with all the learning that we had from that. We got those out the door, and now we're done. We actually passed all the tests. The car is working beautifully. It performed exactly as our models had predicted, 5 years before, and we shipped it to our first customers. So I'm just going to close with, what will you change? What do you think is worth changing? You have many years to think about it. But when you do, these things of looking at the industry and getting people together and to make a change, it's really worth it. It's going to be a fun world, but it's going to be different than the one we have now. Thank you.